Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yaxing. So today I'm going to present this work, qualitative study done with my advisor, Professor Yang Wang and Hui-Chuan Yun. So we're trying to understand people's perception of drones, this emerging technology. So the motivation of this study comes from two aspects. So first, there have been a few studies about drones by scholars from different fields such as government agencies, legal scholars about drone safety and security, but little is known how people think about drones. Second is people's perception of drones can help us to inform future privacy-enhancing drone design as well as public policies. So in this particular study, we understand people's perception of drones from the bystander's perspective. So by saying bystanders, we mean people who do not have experience with drones. So we adopt the interview methodology in this study. So we have, for the interview protocol, we have three types of questions. The first type is general questions. So in the general questions, we basically ask people some general aspects of drones. For example, have you ever seen drones fly? Do you see any benefits and issues of drones? This kind of questions. The second type of question are context-based questions. So because as Professor Helen Nissenbaum mentioned that human behavior are always situated in some concrete context. So we provide 5 scenarios in order to get people's perception on the different contexts. So our scenarios include recording a promotion events in a shopping mall by a store owner, delivering goods by Amazon, recording a friend's party, reporting a parade by the news agency, and also search for criminals in your neighborhood by the local police department. So, and also the third type of questions are about specific aspects of drones. For example, we ask the participants to compare the differences between drones and other tracking technologies, such as phones and CCTVs. So this is the drone we use for the study. In terms of participants, we have 16 interviews in total, and 50% of them male, 50 are female. Then their age ranges from 18 to 60 years old with an average of 29. And our participants also represented a variety of ethnic backgrounds as well as occupations. So for data analysis, we first audio recorded all the interviews upon the participants' permission. We then translated all the interviews into plain text. We conducted a thematic analysis, which is a commonly used method for qualitative data analysis. So how we do it is as follows. So we first immersed ourselves in the data by carefully reading all the interview transcripts, and then take notes for those meaningful patterns. And also we independently code the transcripts, and then we discuss our difference, and when discuss how we can group these codes into high-level themes. And then we come up with 9 themes, 132 unique codes and 9 themes. Here are the themes we come up with. And then the last step is we revisit everything, and to make sure that all the interview excerpt in each theme coherently represent the underlying theme. So so now these to us to the finding. So because of time constraints, I'm not going to talk about all the findings. Here are some of the most interesting ones. So first, public space or private space is a key factor that our participants considered in determining their expectations of privacy, and also whether the drone violates their privacy. So generally speaking, if a drone takes a photo or record a video, or even just flies in the private area, they consider that the drone invades their privacy. So this is kind of intuitive, but this brought out a very interesting question. So what is private space? What is public space? And where is the boundary between private and public space? So our participant actually brought up various understanding of private space and public space. Here's an example. So as this participant suggested, so she considered even she's in the public space, As long as she's not participating in any public event, she still considered that as a private space. For example, she specifically mentioned that if I'm sitting in the shopping mall, I consider the area around me as private space, because if you walk close to me, you will be able to hear my phone call or look at my email if you want to. So in this case, so she has a very different understanding of private space. So because of the time constraint, I'm not able to show all the examples. So the detailed, we have various definitions from the participants about private space and public space. You can find it in the paper. Another finding we have is about people's, it's based on the scenario questions. Our participants suggested that they have different expectations of privacy under different scenarios, especially our participant suggests that their expected notification and consent of the drone usage in different contexts. For example, in the recording parade scenario, this participant suggests that prior notification is needed. However, in the attending party and recorded party scenario, this participant also suggested that prior notification is not necessary, because if you are not consent to give, you are not consent to be recorded, you should not go to the party. Then another interesting findings we have from our study is about the comparison between drones and other technologies like camera phones and CCTVs. So as suggested by our participants, there are 4 factors that can differentiate drones with other tracking technologies. First is the distance of recording. The distance of recording indicates that when using drone, photos can be taken in a distance without the people's awareness. The flexibility indicates that the drone can actively invade bystanders' personal space, which weaken their control over their own privacy. And the visibility or accessibility of the controller means that when the drone, even a drone is spotted and is flying in the sky, the controller can still hide from the public sight, and the bystanders is not able to know who is the controller, and we call this the hidden controller. Also, the intended purpose means that the intended purpose of the drone is unknown to the bystanders. So here's an example. As one of the participants said, when the phone is taking the photo, you will most likely see it, and you know it is taking a phone. But with the drones, you will not be able to know, because even though you see the drone, you don't know who the people behind this. So draw from these conclusions, we brought up this concept of the duality of the drones. So the duality of the drones means that people's perception of drones are not only bounded to the drone itself, but also the controller behind the drone, and the people's relationship with the drone controllers. So this we call this the duality of the drone. The idea is that, as this participant suggested, when the drone is taking a photo, you don't even know who is the controller. So all the findings lead us to the discussion of our results. So first, as I mentioned before, we want to highlight the duality of drones. Also, we want to mention the drone's ability to invade people's physical privacy as well as information privacy. So physical privacy means people's privacy in their physical space, such as their office or houses. And information privacy means the people's personal data. So their names, their address, and their credit card number, things like this. But if you think of the duality of the drones and the physical privacy and information privacy together, so you will notice that drone has the ability to invade physical privacy and information privacy. But what's more important is that in most cases, even drone invade people's physical privacy and information privacy. Most people will most likely don't know who is the controller behind the drone, and also this is the time when the privacy concerns arise. And also, we discussed people's context-based privacy concerns. So as I mentioned before, there are several context factors, such as whether the drone is flying in private space or public space, or the purpose of the drone can also raise different privacy concerns, the privacy concerns of drones. So we have some other findings, like people's. Our participants suggest that they have a clear understanding of the benefits of drones and the future development and the future of drones. And also they also brought up the security concerns as well as safety concerns. For example, if the drone fall down from the sky, they will be hurt, things like this. And I don't have time to cover this here, so if interested, you can find it in the paper. So the next part we want to draw is the design implication and also some of the public policy implication. So first, we based on our findings, we proposed some high-level design principles. So the first one is we propose that future drone and their controllers should making both the drone and their controller more discoverable, approachable, and accountable to the bystanders, so that they can be discovered, people can know each other. And also, we suggest that the future drone system should enable the communication between drone controllers and ordinary citizens, or as we call bystanders. And also, future drone manufacturers should make drone design sensitive to local social and cultural norms. So this is suggested by the contextual integrity, so that because different people have different expectations under different social and cultural context. To be more specific, we have some. We made some specific design suggestions from 2 dimensions. So the first dimension is from drone and its controllers versus bystanders, and also proactive measures versus reactive measures. For example, drone can actively send out signals indicating that it's so here the first one send signals so that the people who do not want to be in the photo will know it is taking photos, and then they can probably walk away. Thus, we suggest that future systems should support this type of signal communication. Also, another example would be bystanders can actively send some request to access the photos which might have them in the site. So we suggest that future systems should also provide this kind of communication. The possibility of the communication between the bystanders and controllers. We also have some detailed policy implications, and because of time limit, I'm not present here. So we'll present this work in a FTC drone workshop in this fall in Washington, D.C. So hopefully we can provide them some input for the policymakers. So a little bit about ongoing future work. So because this study is from the bystander's perspective, so we want to understand the perception from the controller perspective to see whether there are any differences between their understanding, and also we want to come up with some practical mechanisms that can that is acceptable by both controllers and bystanders. So the major takeaway from this from our study. So the first is we provide empirical evidence for the safety, security, and privacy issues of drones, and also again we want to highlight the duality of drone. And the third is we propose the proactive and reactive suggestions for future privacy-enhancing drone design. Thank you. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them.